I've had the pleasure for the last 2.5 years to work at Wildcard, and one of the things that we've done, and I guess this is going to be recorded, so there's a big government agency in the U.S. that uses our software, and Wildcard has been running that particular website for about 10 years now, and with a succession of versions of Plone, and using the experience that we've had at that working for that agency, plus a number of us have worked at a university, the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh, and so we had a lot of experience with handling large websites with large numbers of content editors. And the experience of running a large, long-term website with a lot of turnover in editors informed the work that we put into this new website, which is built on Plone, but which we call Castle. So in case you were wondering why I named my talk, it's a little Shakespeare quote from well, I guess you're not supposed to say the name of the play. So Castle CMS is really Plone plus a lot of UI, user enhancements, user interface enhancements, and a lot of additional services that improve the management of the content. The ability for someone to search content on the website is improved, and I'll show you some of these additional services. But really, it's meant for large websites. So large sites meaning lots of pages, lots of folders, lots of documents, the ability to search through it, the ability to efficiently move content or tag content. So a lot of these things are familiar to us as Plone people, but we made some improvements in Castle. We added some of these additional improvements in Castle. As I said, it was meant really to be a distillation of the experience that we had at large websites, with large websites, and with the number of content editors that use our software is spread out over, the entire country, really, and they don't have a lot of opportunity to receive consistent training. So again, you want to improve the ability for someone to just log into the site and understand fairly intuitively what they need to do and not break things. So some of the first things that we did is we incorporated additional security features into Castle. So we have a thing we call the login shield, which is essentially a proxy that you have to log into before you can even get access to the site. So it's not fancy, but it's something that does help. It mitigates against undesired access to the site. And it's particularly useful if you have something that needs to be private. So if you're running a traditional intranet, you really don't want it. You shouldn't be putting it on the public intranet anyway, but if you had to for some reason, you can still even further block access to it. We include two-factor authentication in Castle. We have activity audit logs, so you can see who's been doing what on the site. You can also do things like prevent attempts at logins. So right now in Plone, somebody could just keep trying to log into your site 100 times, 1,000 times, and you don't even know about it. But with Castle, you can block that after a certain number of tries, so say 10. And then eventually you can delete those accounts too. If somebody's lost their password or if someone's guessed the password of an account on your site, you can eventually expire and then delete the accounts. There's a lot of other features that we included. Again, it's to improve the security of the site, and our clients are often very security conscious. So I'm just going to list a number of things here because I didn't have a lot of time today, but I'll show you some of these things. But really, Plone versus Castle, what are the improvements that we put into Castle? Well, for one thing, we made Mosaic. We put Mosaic into Castle, so we don't even want to try to introduce people to content editing without Mosaic tiles. We think it's such a great feature, people should just have it. We also have theming that looks very familiar to you. You'll see in the theming control panel in Castle, it looks like the normal one, but we don't use diazo rules. That's partly, an optimization, a simplification in the theming. We didn't feel that with the theming that we had in place that we needed the rules.xml parsing. We also made the decision, and it's been, it's not controversial, but it's been discussed for many years in Plone, but this concept of a folder having a default item has been confusing generations now of users, I know at my old university, and so we just eliminated that entirely. So a folder is still a container, but we just have a text tile that you can put onto it. You can add text, any tiles you want to a folder, but it doesn't have the concept anymore that confuses anybody about default pages. We also stopped using portlets in Castle, and we instead have this concept of slots into which you can place tiles. So anywhere on the page, there's several different slots defined. And if you're familiar with the product content well portlets, it's similar in concept. You can place tiles anywhere in any of these slots. We also have something that many of you may have already done this, the idea that people would upload files and images and just have them scattered anywhere on the site gets very confusing to content editors when they want to go find an image to reuse on their page. They can never find it, so they end up uploading it again and again and again. Well, we removed that. We put everything into a single image repository, a single file repository, and so on, and it's so people can always find the images that are on the site. They're going to be in this one place. And we have the concept of a recycle bin, which you may have tried to implement in various ways yourself. This is just now part of Castle. If you'll recall, a few years, maybe 2-3 years ago, we removed the undo. Maybe it was longer than that. We removed undo in Plone, and it's one of the things that irritated me because I always like to use the undo feature. And one of the reasons why we don't need it in Castle is because the most common reason why somebody would call up a help desk would be, I deleted something, I didn't want to delete it, can you help me? Well, with the recycle bin, you just eliminate a whole class of support questions. So the recycle bin is something that's in Castle. We have a whole bunch of other things which probably the most significant one, I think, here, I know Paul Rowland loves the image focal points thing. This is where when you upload an image into the Castle site, you can indicate where on the image the image should always be displayed, even if it's viewed on a mobile device, which Castle will crop down the images to fit, but you'll always be able to know that the face of this one person will show up no matter what size of device that the page is being looked at with. We also have, and I'll show you the dialog box that we have for adding content. It's a little different from Plone, and we think it's a lot more efficient when content editors are creating content. They'll find this is a refreshing improvement. So let me switch over to where to go? Oh, this is not going to work very well. Okay. Okay, well, I'll do my best. I think the screen is probably, I can probably change the resolution, sorry. Wait. It's a little better. Okay. Well, okay. So this is a sample site that we have, and probably the most interesting, if I get my mouse, this is the Add button. So the toolbar you saw is similar to the standard Plone 5 toolbar on the side, but when you click the Add button, then you get this new dialog box. And what you can do here is you're typing in, you're prompted for a title, so. And you get a preview of the ID. If you want to, you can change the folder that it goes into, but by default it's going to go into the current folder. And then you get a preview of the URL. And then you can select the state that the content should be in. So if you know right away that you want to publish it, you can just go ahead and set the state right now. And because I'm a manager, I can do this. Otherwise, somebody would only be able to pick pending review. But if at this point, I have two choices. I can go ahead and I can click the standard Create and Edit button, which would take me to the page that I'm creating and the edit form on that page, which is the standard behavior for Plone. But here, this is something that I find really useful now that I've gotten so used to in here that when I use Plone, I kind of feel a little crippled, which is that I can just go ahead and create the page, and it creates it, and I'm still on this Add Dialog box. So if I need to add multiple pages, I can just go ahead and add them here. So this is a nice feature if you are creating a large number of pages that you want to eventually manage individually or edit differently. You can do it very nicely from this. And you have the ability to then click Edit, for example, and be taken to that page to edit it. So this is going to look very familiar to you if you use Mosaic. You got your standard tiles for title, description, and rich text. And so that is one nice feature of the new toolbar that we have. You also on this page have in this dialog, you have the ability to drag and drop and upload things right here. So let me see if I can. Yes. Okay. So what you get, let's say in this case, obviously it's an image that I uploaded, and I'm prompted for a title. And then what I can do is I can also edit this a little bit more. I can crop it right here, and then I can rotate and do some simple changes to the image. I won't. But also, you may not be able to see this very well, but there's a gray dot right here in the center of the image. And if I wanted this picture to be focused on Chewbacca's face when it gets cropped down, I've just placed the focal point of this image on Chewbacca. So at this point, I will hit OK. So it uploads the image, and it tells me right away that the image is not published yet. So this is another subtle difference between Castle and Plone. Plone got rid of individual state for files and images. We put it back into Castle because, in fact, it's caught me a number of times with Plone sites. I'll upload an image or a file to a folder that is published, and suddenly that image or file is publicly visible. It may not be what you want, but the idea here again behind Castle is to try to prevent security problems. So prevent you from unintentionally publishing something without explicitly taking action. So here, this is reminding me that the image is not yet published, so I can go ahead and publish it. So that's the upload. And if I can find this guy. So other than that, you've got your standard built-in Plone content types. I don't think there's anything special about these any further, so I'll just hit Done. Oop. And so this is back on the edit form. The other changes that you'll see here, if you customize the layout, is the number of tiles that we added to Castle. There's, I'd say about half of these should be familiar to you if you've been using Mosaic for a while. But we've got also embed tiles are standard. We've got image, audio, slider, gallery, We have map tiles. So in Castle, we can associate location data with any piece of content. And then with your map tile, you can display the set of locations that you've got on your site. And you can do that by doing a dynamic query, essentially a collection lookup, or you can pick out individual things to display in the map tile. So geolocation is just part of the content metadata that we have in Castle. We have additional social media sharing tiles. So for some reason, I don't actually know if our big government client uses Pinterest. I don't. They do? Oh, okay. And then a number of these other tiles on the side here, which I'm sorry, I don't have a whole lot of time to show you, but I'll show you the document viewer, which is something that is available for Plone users too, but it's something that does automatic optical character recognition as well. Let me see. Browse. Don't have one in here. PDF. Oh yeah. Actually, this may be a bad. This is an ad that we purchased for Plone in the Idealware report that's going to come out soon. So now this is a PDF. So now I'm prompted to place this PDF viewer, this tile here. Hit save. So you can see up here, this is another change in Castle. Along the top bar, you can see the notifications menu. This shows you all of the things that have been sent to you as information messages. So you can go back and consult them in case you miss them. So what's going to happen here is, this may not finish right now, but there's some background processing that we have that's included in Castle that does things like image conversion, PDF conversion. There's a whole bunch of scheduled jobs that run in the background that do other things, but that's part of Castle. The full Castle deployment includes something like 47 pieces that have to be configured and installed and tied together. So this would be one of them. Okay. So you saw the add button and some of the other changes over in the toolbar I wanted to highlight are when you change the state of a piece of content, you're immediately shown what we call our content quality check. And it will give you essentially a list of things that may be wrong with your content. You can make this required. By default, it's optional. This is, again, another way to improve the quality of your site content without having to have too many people reviewing the content. I had better continue back to the presentation. Oop. Sorry. So, again, this is a very quick introduction, really, to Castle. We have a lot of other services in the back end that I can't show you, but we have automatic archiving to Amazon S3. So if you run a site with a lot of PDFs, a lot of images, then you can set them to be automatically moved to bulk storage, but they're still appearing to visitors as if they're served from your site. This is a good way to manage hundreds or thousands of large documents. We have built-in emails, newsletters, and site announcements. So if, for example, you want to announce a weather closing for your university, you can do that. We have integration with text messaging services. We have built-in Google Analytics. So if you enter a Google Analytics key, you can see the analytics report for that particular piece of content on your site. We have Elasticsearch that's included with Castle, and it will tune its search results to match the popularity of of the content that's being seen by Google. So if something on your site is very popular according to Google, your internal built-in search will show that. We have also included ACTS Core accessibility compliance checking in the content quality check. And we have a couple of collaboration tools that we integrated, RocketChat and Etherpad. Some of the features in Castle were interesting enough to people in Sorrento in April that in the discussion for the Plone roadmap, there was a lot of enthusiasm to include some of the features that we put into Castle back into Plone. And of course, this is discussion. This was in Sorrento when people were very relaxed and probably not under a lot of pressure to be realistic. But some of the things that you saw today would be potentially put back into Plone. So people have asked us, is Castle CMS open source? Yes, it's open source. We have 2 versions that we plan to have to provide. The community version, which you have access to right now in GitHub. And in fact, the community version that you have in GitHub contains a lot of features that we are making our clients pay for. So what we call the Castle CMS Advantage is specifically geared towards larger enterprise clients who are going to need some of those features. And that could be better LDAP integration. That could be more advanced features that you probably wouldn't need to use if you were a smaller group trying to use a good content management system. And then we have what we call Castle Cloud, which is Wildcard doing the managed hosting for all of the services that need to be connected and configured to work well with Castle. I had a question. Is this an evil thing for us to do, to try to maintain 2 separate packages, one which is open to the public for use for free and one which is paid for? And the short version of the story is I have a friend who hired me when I was 17 years old. This is Brian Silverman at Logo Computer Systems in Montreal. And he had an argument with Richard Stallman, who's the founder of the Free Software Foundation. And Richard Stallman kept yelling at him, "You're evil, you're evil, you're evil." And the reason for that is because my friend Brian Silverman was selling the Logo computer software for about $150 a copy at retail prices. And Brian's answer to Richard Stallman was that if it hadn't been for the price that he was charging, he would never have been able to hire the programmers, the technical writers, the instructional designers, and all the people involved in making it possible for school children around the world to use millions of copies of Logo. And in the Plone forum, I asked recently how many of us have learned to program using Logo, and it was a small number of us, but it's funny to see that Logo itself reached a lot more people because there was some money attached to having to pay for it. So I don't think that Wildcard is evil. We're obviously contributing back to the Plone community in various ways, and it's something that we just want to be able to continue driving innovation in Castle and in Plone. So some of the features that you'd get in the community version are listed here. We have more in the Advantage package or the Advantage edition. And in our roadmap, we have in mind a number of additional features that, again, are intended to make it easier for larger institutions to use. And hopefully, larger institutions have more budget, and they're going to be okay paying for these things. So please join us and help us improve Plone, help us improve Castle, especially the community version, and then we can keep evolving Plone through driving some decisions in Castle that maybe the community is not ready to do with Plone, but at least can see whether or not Castle falls on its face or maybe succeeds and then can incorporate back into Plone. So please give it a try. There's a couple of ways that you can build this version of Castle on your MacBook or on a Linux distribution. And we are looking for your help. If you see bugs or if you want to contribute bug fixes, that'd be great. But we're also looking for development partners to help us drive Castle, especially the Advantage edition. So, thank you.